We are recording. This is a good...
Am I close enough?
Probably okay there. Okay, I have a squeaky chair, so this is... You think about right there?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Okay. You know what, I'm gonna...
Double fisting.
I am double fisting.
Welcome to the True North Podcast.
Yeah.
My husband is double fisting.
Double fisting.
Alcohol, that is. Which is
oh,
exactly what we're talking about today, actually.
Alcohol. Yeah, we're going to talk alcohol today. What are you drinking, my love?
This is... What is this? A raspberry mule.
Raspberry mule. Raspberry mule. Excellent. Refreshing.
Excellent. Would you quit moving in your
I'm
chair?
sorry. I can't. I want to sit. Okay. If I can sit back, we're good. Okay. Put that closer to you, because I talk a lot louder.
You do talk a little bit louder, which is ironic, because I'm a yeller.
I know. Maybe I'm just up in the moment with this production thing. I don't know. Anyways. Alcohol.
Yeah.
Sorry
to not sound excited about it. The struggle is that I am excited about it.
Yeah.
But you know more than I do, but that's the struggle.
Sure, yeah. Should I give background?
I don't see why not.
Okay. Well, I'm Caleb.
Be confident.
Sorry. I worked in food and beverage for
basically
six
ever.
years?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 26. I guess 5 or 6 years.
Anyway.
Currently work for an alcohol distributor. Sell alcohol, wine, and liquor. Also, I coordinate weddings, which is important. You know, alcohol is important for weddings.
Well, and the thing that I know is that in certain states, it's super. The way that you serve alcohol at your wedding is super finicky.
Every state.
Yeah. Is it every state?
Every state's a little bit different.
Yeah, and so that's my contribution. Is that there's a lot to do when you serve alcohol at your weddings, which is. I mean, in addition to how to get to the part where you serve alcohol, things that happen after that are super huge, all the unruly guests, all the drinks that you have to serve, etc., etc. There's just a lot to talk about. Yeah.
What to serve? My dad fights people on tequila. What should I do?
That's hilarious.
That kind of stuff.
I love it.
So, I mean, we could just talk. We're going to talk in the context of Indiana. I mean, because every state, every locality, even every city is going to be a little bit different.
Sure.
With how you serve alcohol, what kind of licenses you have to get, what kind of permission you have to get. So we're going to talk about. We'll talk about our wedding, how we did it, why I feel like the way we did it is probably the best and cheapest option.
Sure.
So, I mean, when we started planning for our wedding, we wanted to serve alcohol. We both drink. We're drinkers. I work in alcohol.
Well, and I think a big part is the venue that we chose.
Yeah.
I think that so that was the very first thing that we did when we started planning our wedding was we booked our venue we toured our venue before we even got engaged.
Yeah, we did.
We were we're getting married. Here's the venue that I want, and we booked it right after we got engaged.
Yeah, I have no problem saying the name. I mean, I would push them anyways. Can we talk about it?
Yeah, I don't care.
We booked a venue called the Speakeasy.
Yeah.
We were married at the Speakeasy in
very
Park Ripple.
Industrial, handmade tables, just very niche is the word I want to use.
It was cool. It was modern industrial.
It's a co-working space, which is super cool. They provided all the furniture, but all that to say, the venue is important because we booked a venue that doesn't have a permit to serve alcohol on purpose. And we booked a venue where you had to bring in your own. You either had to hire somebody to do it or bring in your own. And some venues, when you book them, they have a bar included, or there's a certain caterer. A lot of weddings that we've done have had a certain caterer that you have to have. Yeah. And ours, it kind of had a bar on the premises, but it was like a coffee bar.
It's a bar top. It wasn't like a. It's not. They don't regularly serve alcohol.
There weren't fridges behind, so that was something that we had to think about was how we were going to serve alcohol, which is how we got started on all of our knowledge of all this. I think.
Yeah, and doing this planning. So essentially, in Indiana, there's 2 ways to have alcohol at your wedding. First way is to spend a ton of money and let somebody else take care of all of it, which is going to be through either your venue, because they probably have a 3-way catering license if they're a bigger venue.
What does 3-way mean?
Right. So a 3-way catering license means that they've paid a lot of money to have a license, which is a permission to serve
a permit
3 types of alcohol: beer, wine, and liquor. Right? It's a yearly renewed license that is through the Indiana Alcohol Tobacco Commission that they have to be able to serve liquor. That's the only way that you can serve liquor in a public place in Indiana is with that kind of license. wineries and distilleries have different kinds of licenses, but to every restaurant has this license if they serve liquor.
To serve it to guests.
Yeah. So you're looking for that 3-way license. The reason that it's more expensive to go that route is because those licenses are so expensive.
Yeah.
Every county has an allotted number of those licenses. Mm-hmm. So if there's only 12 licenses, it's a scarce product.
Sure.
People spend millions of dollars on these licenses.
Yeah, caterers and bar companies, because that's a new thing, is like bar companies specifically are charging you a lot of money so that they can keep this license, so they can pay to keep this license.
Well, the license is expensive, and that cost is being passed on to the consumer, right? Because you're consumer, the bride and groom, whoever's paying for the alcohol.
The wedding, yeah.
So if you want to serve liquor, if you're adamant about serving hard liquor, talk to your venue. They either have bar packages available if they have that license, or if they don't have a license and they require outside alcohol,
which ours did. That was ours. Yeah.
You'd have to hire a catering company. It's usually a catering company. Sometimes it's just a standalone alcohol service that will do beer, wine, and liquor, and they will give them your head count. They'll ask you what kinds of booze, if you want to do top shelf stuff, if you just want to do well, which means the cheaper stuff. Top shelf will be more expensive, obviously. What kinds of stuff you want to serve, and they'll give you a quote. Usually a per person amount,
Sure. It's usually per head. And sometimes it's regardless of if they drink or not. Like we toured a venue where they had a bar package included because they had the catering license. Or
well,
they had
not included, but...
Well, no. What I'm trying to say, that was the point, was that you had to pay extra for the bar package, but the bar package was per everybody above 21, regardless of if they were going to drink. We had a whole section of our wedding that weren't going to drink.
Probably half of our adult guests were not going to drink.
But they were above 21, so we would have had to pay for them anyway, and it was like a lot of money.
It was $26 a head for just beer and wine.
Yeah, it was like almost, it was like over
$28 a head
was it?
For beer, wine, and liquor, which is only a $2 difference, but that's how they make their money.
Sure.
This is the venue that does. This was venue exclusive. They had their own bartenders, their own bar top, providing their own alcohol.
Right. So that's one way. The second way is to hire a caterer.
A caterer that has the license.
Right.
And so they can serve beer, wine, and liquor, but they're an outside whoever.
Right. And then the third way is the way that we did it.
Third way, we just did. Those are only 2 ways to serve liquor. You have to go through that license. That's the key.
Yeah, to serve liquor.
Right, to serve liquor. But if you're okay with just having beer and wine,
and your venue's okay with it,
you can, if it's an outside kind of thing, like if they don't have their own license, you can get a 1-day permit. It's $50, which is a lot cheaper than
most other things.
$3,000, which was going to be ours.
Well, that was 2 guests of drinking at the venue that we toured. So.
Yeah, it's a nice bottle of Cab, $50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so niche of you to say.
Well, sorry. $50 permit, and the process to go, you have to go through. You have to do a lot of this in person. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I'll be honest with you. But if you,
I get it.
But if you Google Indiana 1-day alcohol permit, and you go to the in.gov ATC website, Alcohol Tobacco Commission, there are instructions there on how to acquire this permit and have permission to serve beer and wine at your event. Now, here's a key here. If you're on private property, like if you're doing your wedding at mom and dad's barn on their property, you do not need a permit to serve alcohol.
Right, because it's private property.
It's private property. It's a private residence. But if it's on like a public ground, like not just like a private business, but if it's like a public venue hall and it's not on somebody's personal property,
right, like just a regular wedding venue,
you have to have a permit. Yeah. So $50, you go through the process. You'll have to take a money order or a cashier's check to an office with signed paperwork and a copy of your layout.
Well, that, and to get it signed, you have to go to, what was it, the sheriff's office?
You have to take that to your local...
where the venue is.
Not state police. Local city police, I think.
Yeah.
Have the captain sign off on it, saying, as recognizing that the local police are sanctioning your event.
This is why it's a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass.
It's if you know what you're doing, which is why we're trying to convey this. If you know what we're doing, it's a straightforward process, but we didn't know what we were doing, and so it felt like a lot of running around.
And it is.
It is.
Yeah.
But you take it here, you wait for it to get signed, you take it to the sheriff or whatever it is, the captain.
Whoever it was. It was like a local precinct captain.
It is the local precinct, but I think it had to do with where your venue was. It determines what precinct you have to go to.
Where you go to get assigned by the local police depends on where you are.
Yeah.
And there's information you can contact the ATC, Indiana Alcohol Tobacco Commission, to find out exactly where you need to take your paperwork, who needs to sign it, and they'll tell you about how long it should take. It shouldn't take more than a week total if you do it right.
I would say
you have you have your money ready.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that bad.
Yeah. So then you get your signed form, and where do you take that?
What you do is you'll get back your signed copy. You'll take that with your money order to the local ATC office, Alcohol Tobacco Commission office,
and the
copy of your layout.
Yeah, that's what it's called. The copy of the layout, because the purpose of the copy of the layout is to prove that your bar is separate from the rest of not totally separate, but to prove that like kids can't just walk up and take a drink. Now
that might have changed. Because so we did our wedding a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Indiana just recently, like super recently, like a month ago?
Yeah,
recently started allowing minors into bars, right? But they can't sit at a bar top necessarily.
Yeah.
So those rules might have changed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's something to do some research on for sure.
Yeah. So what we're talking about may be outdated, just as a heads up. So. Either way, you go through the rigmarole, you go through the crap.
I think the process is going to be very similar.
Process should be similar. The layout might not be required, though.
Sure. Either way, take your money and your signed form.
You get your 1-day permit, which is just permission to serve alcohol whatever day of the week, day of the month, whatever that you designate as your wedding day. So, you have this copy. What you have to do is you have to display it publicly in the venue.
We put it on the bar.
We put it on the wall behind the bar with a piece of tape. It does not have to be
super simple.
Does not have to be formal. As long as it's displayed, that way no one's gonna come in. But like if anybody was to come into the wedding and ask for a permit, it's on the wall. It's
and part of it, I mean, our venue gave us a lot of direction with this. I think because they were very well versed because they had several weddings there before, and one of the main purposes that we booked that venue, not only did we like it, but we were allowed to bring in our own stuff, which was super, super cheap, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But they were very helpful, and so they said to us, this is just so if anybody from the outside comes in and see that you're served, like if a cop, for example,
Excise police,
were to walk into your wedding and see that you're serving alcohol, you just need to prove that you're allowed to do that.
On the slim chance.
Right, super slim, yes, but that was their point. They were like, "Hey, if this is just to cover your ass, basically."
Imagine how embarrassing it would be.
Because we didn't give it to we didn't have kids, but if we had, obviously we wouldn't have given it to the kids. But the whole point was, you want to cover your ass in the event that something happens.
This is one of those cross your T's, dot your I's. Because if you want alcohol at your wedding, this is the stuff you have to go through.
Sure.
So. You've got your permit. You've got it posted behind the bar at your venue. And we put this in we gave this to our bartender and just with a brief directions of we got the permit, put it up, whatever.
Yeah.
Your venue may also ask for a copy of your bartender's alcohol license. Because they have to have a server license to serve the alcohol under that permit.
Absolutely.
So, and that should be easy. I mean, if you go to a bar regularly, you got a friend that's a bartender.
Which is exactly what we did.
A lot of people don't work in restaurants at all, and they have their license because they like to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know? And we had a family friend that we
just
paid a couple $100
from a hometown restaurant that we were like, hey, it was my dad. I was like, my dad will pay you a couple $100 if you come do this, and she was like, 100%, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then she got free alcohol. So
right.
Yeah.
So you got your permit, you got your bartender picked out, everything's licensed, everything's kosher. What do you serve at your wedding?
That is where I would like to step in because this is my favorite. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So remember, we're just beer and wine because we have this permit.
Beer and wine, yeah. So that's something we'll talk about the liquor. We should talk about the liquor part later.
Yeah, let's go back.
As far as beer and wine, so I think it's important to note that if you serve your own alcohol, it's obviously going to be way cheaper.
Yeah.
Because you can buy it. I mean, you can buy it in bulk from. We bought ours from CVS.
We bought a case of wine. It was on sale at CVS. We bought a case there for like $60.
Yeah.
We bought most of our beer at Total Wine. We spent.
We had a lot of extra, but we didn't spend that much
with our $50 permit.
Yeah.
And with paying our bartender, I think probably $300.
Yeah.
And more beer and wine than any of our guests could possibly drink. We had so much extra.
Yeah.
I think we spent $900.
Yeah, it was, which is like way less than you're going to spend, I think.
Oh yeah.
Well, we did the math when we looked at that one venue.
We were quoted over $3,000
just for alcohol. That didn't include food. Alcohol. That didn't include the cost of the actual venue.
Yeah, because these venues,
that was what was ridiculous.
These venues that have the like alcohol packages, they're just their base is already far and away more expensive than a venue that doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Well, and that was another big pull for. Obviously, we're big fans of venues that will let you bring in your own alcohol.
Sure.
Because they're cheaper. Like our venue was, less than $2,000, I think.
Between the alcohol we did ourselves and the base venue cost, we spent less than $3,000.
That's 100%
just
true.
On that part of it.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
But the big question, like you said, was what did we get? So I think we did something pretty cool. We did steal it from 4 weddings, but we made it our own. Mm-hmm. Our unity ceremony was it was a wine.
We called it a wine blending.
Yeah, wine blending.
Wine blending unity ceremony.
Yeah. So what we did was we took 2 little vials of wine and poured it together in a glass, and then we each drank from it. And by each drank from it, I mean I took a sip. He let me go first because he knew I was only going to take a sip. Mm-hmm. And then he chugged the rest of it in front of all of our guests.
I was thirsty.
I thought it was funny. I loved it.
I hadn't drank all day.
It was super. That's not true. It was super on brand, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point was we did the unity ceremony with the wine, and then we served the unity blend. Mm-hmm. So for us, we picked a wine that I liked and a wine that he liked, and mixed them together and served it. So that was easy for us to pick. I mean, that for us was 3 different drinks. We had because for me it was a red, a white, and the unity blend. So that for us was 3 drinks. For the wine, we had
right. If we're talking wine, let's talk wine. We had a sweet red.
Mm-hmm. That was my pick.
That was your pick.
Mm-hmm.
We blended a regular Moscato with it.
We did.
So it was like we have a sweet red and a sweet white. Mm-hmm. And then we did a dry red and a dry white. Mm-hmm. And I think that those 4 are...
They're staples.
They're staples, and you could get away with 1 sweet option.
Sure.
So if you
That's true.
Let's start bare bones.
Yeah.
Because a dry red is going to be... Our wedding was in October. Mm-hmm. To me, as a wine guy, dry red's kind of the like, you got to start at dry red.
Sure.
For me personally.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We got a cheap cab. We bought a case of, like... They were like... $7.87 a bottle at Total Wine. We bought a case.
Yeah.
Then we did sweet red. We got a case of sweet red from CVS. It was on sale.
Yeah.
For so cheap.
See, and the point there is that you can kind of get alcohol, like wherever you buy alcohol, keep your eyeballs out. Like
I've heard of weddings where they didn't buy a bunch of one bottle. They bought like just random bottles.
That's cool.
Like throughout the 6 months leading up to their wedding, and then just kind of serve that.
Yeah.
Whatever was cheap at the time.
Yeah, but we got so much of it on sale that we kind of just kept buying it. And then at the end of the wedding, literally sent people home with full bottles of wine.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, people loved it. It was like a wedding favor that we didn't know we were going to have.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, if you drink wine, come up to the bar because we got free wine.
Yeah, we sent our bartender probably took half a case home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so having a sweet option would be best. We had a regular white Moscato, and then a sweet red, and then a dry red is always a good option. We had a cheap Cabernet Sauvignon, whatever.
Okay, that's enough.
And then a dry white is always a good option for anybody that like aunts especially. It's always aunts. That are like, I want a cold Pinot Grigio or a cold Sauvignon Blanc,
the rich single ale,
or a Chardonnay, whatever it is. So we got like 6, but we didn't even get a full case of some of this stuff. No. We got like 6 bottles.
It worked out well.
Of Sauvignon Blanc, which I was drinking for weeks after the wedding.
Oh yeah.
Like it was.
We got a lot. We got a lot.
Yeah, and if you need specific, recommendations, anything that's good on your wine list at your local favorite restaurant is a good.
Yeah, that's good.
Good way to go with.
And usually they mark them up at restaurants. It'll look expensive, but when you buy them at the store, it's usually not that expensive.
If
so
you're
that's a good point.
If you're at a restaurant looking at your wine list, and you really like this wine, and it's $12 a glass, it's probably $12 for a bottle at Kroger.
Yeah, that's
or Walmart or whatever.
Piggly Wiggly if you're from the South.
Whatever. So those are the wine options
that we
recommend.
and then beer. Beer was the other thing we did.
Let's talk beer.
Yeah.
Light lager. It doesn't matter what it is.
I don't drink beer, so I don't know any of this.
And I don't love... It's not my go-to.
No, I feel like it's easy to... I mean, okay. Part of it was that my dad paid for a lot of the wedding, God bless him.
Yep.
And so we got his favorite beer.
Mm-hmm.
That was so we got him Corona.
A couple cases of Corona.
Yeah.
Which is a hit.
It is a hit. But that's the big thing, is to pick hits. Like, if you drink a specific beer, have that beer. I think it's super important to pick things that represent you. I think that's, I mean, on more of an emotional level of the alcohol side, it's important to pick things that represent you. The other side of it is to pick things that you know your guests are going to drink. So if we had a lot of people that we knew would drink like Mich Ultra, for example. Mm-hmm. We just knew that it was a super easy beer where we grew up. People were drinking that all the time. And that's who we invited, so that's what we got.
I'll drink a Mich Ultra. It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's
things that are easy to drink.
It feels a little classier than like Budweiser or Busch Light or Natty Light. And Natty Light's, if you serve a Natty Light at a wedding, it's
a shotgun wedding.
Natural Light or Keystone Light.
I even think Busch Light's kind of shitty.
But no, Busch Light too. Yeah. No, you're right. Just because it's in the fridge doesn't mean I don't agree with you.
Yeah. It's super fair. Anyways.
No, you're right. But having like a light, approachable lager. Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing.
Approachable. That's a good way to say it.
Here's the other thing to think about, which we haven't said. If you're serving free booze at your wedding, people are going to drink it no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Especially the beer guys.
That's true.
Beer guys will drink piss water if it's free.
That's what Busch is to me, is piss water.
That's fair. But beer guys will drink whatever. Mm-hmm. Coors Light's a good option too. But like if whatever it is, if it's free,
ours
they're
was
drink it.
Corona and Mich Ultra.
And wine too.
Yeah.
If it's free,
if you're already drunk, who cares what you're drinking at that point?
Also that if it's free, Aunt Sylvia, she's going to go up to the bar, she's going to say, do you have a dry white? And they're going to say yes, and she's going to say, cool, I'll take a glass. She's not going to ask what vintage it is.
Right.
Or like,
well, in my opinion, if you're giving free alcohol away, like if you're serving alcohol for free at your wedding, guests need to shut up anyway.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Yeah, like if you have, which is a whole other thing that I think is important to say. Yeah. We are of the opinion that you should have free alcohol. If you are having alcohol, it should be free. If you are having a cash bar, put it on your invitation. Yes. People need to know ahead of time that they need to bring cash. That is important.
Yeah, even if it's these are, we're talking bar options now.
Sure.
I mean, there's a hybrid option, right?
Yeah.
Some bars are free up into a certain number of drinks or at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna if there's a possibility at all that your guests have to pay cash, Tell them
they need to know
up front. Nothing is worse than going to a barn wedding that's 20 miles from the next town, having a cash bar, and I didn't know about it, and I didn't bring cash.
Yeah, that's the worst.
I want to drink at the wedding. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a wedding. I want to drink.
Well, and that's why we are of the opinion that it should be free. Yeah. I know it's always more expensive, and a cash bar is a good way to save money, and I will give cash bars, I'll let them have that. But
make it work in the budget if you can.
Make it work in the budget if you can, because people are usually already either spending money on a hotel, spending $100 on a wedding gift.
They're buying you a gift.
Some of your bridesmaids bought their dresses. Like, serve them some booze.
Your mothers and grandmothers probably bought a dress.
Yeah, my dad paid for, for me, he paid for 2 dresses, and I didn't even wear one. And so I was like, absolutely, I'll serve you your favorite beer.
People are financially investing in your wedding that are just guests.
Yeah, it's important to fit alcohol into your budget.
Yeah. I've and going back to like the free thing, I've only ever complained about alcohol at a wedding if I had to pay for it.
That's absolutely true.
If it was free,
I don't care what it is.
You didn't hear a word out of me.
No.
I'm going to drink it and enjoy it.
Well, and picking what represents you is a good way to, because you can kind of play it off. Like, this represents me. Well, my represents me was a cheap, shitty bottle of Sweet Red.
Yep.
And so that was an easy way to play off cheap alcohol.
Yeah.
But it was cute because I was like, it's the Unity blend. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so that's a good way to do it. And no one's gonna complain if you say that this is what we're serving and it's free.
No.
Like, that's huge. That's a good point. That was a good point. The only time I've ever complained about alcohol is if I had to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
huge. That's huge.
Free beer always tastes better, too.
It does.
That's a personal preference.
Now, something else to keep in mind, though, is that you need a bartender who's not going to overserve your guests.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Because I don't want sloppy on the dance floor. I don't want sloppy in the bathroom. I don't want... keep your shit together.
Well, and more important than that, it's a safety issue.
It is. Absolutely it is.
You and I both had...
Driving home, yeah.
Exactly. You and I both had people... If we had our wedding at in a more rural setting... Mm-hmm. A lot of these people were going to overdrink and they were going to drive. It was just
absolutely they would have.
I didn't make them bad people. They're just irresponsible shitheads. You know what I mean? Like that.
Which you are when you get drunk.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't make it okay, but that's true.
Sure. Alcohol is always a dangerous game.
It is.
Whether you're at a wedding or not.
And that's why I also want to say no judgment if you choose not to have alcohol at your wedding. Mm-hmm. That's obviously not our style, and every wedding that we've ever done has served alcohol.
Sure.
And because it's a very popular thing.
Yeah. Loosens people up.
It does.
Socially acceptable.
If you choose not to have alcohol at your wedding, you're probably not listening to this anyway.
Sure.
But that's something to keep in mind. Yeah. It is a cost saver, but people like to drink.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's I guess that's a good point about the saving money thing. If you're really trying to save money by doing a cash bar, one option is just to not do alcohol.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
I'll say it. That's an option.
And that's why.
Might be unfair,
but that's why you need to put it on your invitation, which somebody did. We've had somebody that did that.
Yes.
They said it's a cash bar, and our first question was, "Did you tell people?" And both of them were like, "Absolutely, yeah." Half the family doesn't drink, so we made it a cash bar.
Yeah.
Which is super fair. That was super warranted in that situation. They put it on their invitation.
Yeah, it needs to be communicated.
Yeah.
Okay, we got off a little bit. We were talking beer options, I think.
Beer, yeah.
So having a light, I'll call it a light domestic, Bud Light, Coors Light, Michelob Ultra.
Not Busch, because Busch sucks.
Busch Light. It's a good option.
It is not.
Busch Latte.
Dear listeners, do not serve Busch Light.
We call them heavy beers. Beers that aren't light, like regular Budweiser.
Guinness?
Or maybe not Guinness, but
that was a question.
Miller High Life is a good option, but a lot of the heavier... they're not higher calorie, they're just regular calorie beers. Yeah. You know what I mean? A lot of those beers they're just heavier and people aren't going to enjoy them as much, I don't think.
Well, they can't have that many because they'll get full.
Yeah, right. That's
now,
part of it.
Here's something to think about, though. If you're not sure what to get, ask your guests.
Yeah.
So we did... That was a good way for us to figure out who was going to drink what. We put on our RSVP because we did it online. We put on our RSVP, are you going to drink? And if you are you going to drink beer or wine? Because that's what we'll have.
It was one of the questions. It was if you're drinking, which one are you most likely to drink?
So another way to do that,
wine, beer, or I'm not drinking. Is what we put.
So another way to do that would be any suggestions, or even ask your family, hey, Uncle Danny, if you were to have a beer at a wedding, what would you prefer it be?
Sure.
You know what I mean? People that have been to weddings. What have you? What did you drink at the last wedding you went to? Yeah. Ask around. I think that's appropriate.
More than likely, what your guests are going to drink.
Yeah, and I think buy what your guests are going to drink is huge.
If your uncles always bring Yingling to the barbecues, have a couple cases of Yingling because they're going to drink it.
Absolutely.
And if you don't buy it, more than likely they're going to sneak it in anyway. So
that's not untrue.
So just have it there ready to go.
Yeah.
So
that's something to talk about. People who sneak in alcohol. Yeah. Here's the thing about the beer. Here's the thing about the beer and wine permit is that if liquor is found on the premises, you're in deep shit.
Yeah, you're responsible. If your name will be on the license.
So
you're responsible.
Your name was on the license, and so for us it was tell the groomsmen not to sneak in flasks. Yeah. I'm not going to touch on whether they did or they didn't. However,
we're on record, so I'll say that.
I don't even know how to...
all guests, as far as I were aware, were told not to bring flasks.
That is true.
And none of them did.
On record.
On the record.
Oh, no.
On the record, no one brought flasks.
Anyway.
I'm only laughing because it's funny to imagine that if they did...
They would have been in a lot of trouble. What the
consequences would have been.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Don't bring liquor if you have a beer and wine license.
Yeah. Don't do it.
That's the big point there. I feel like we're really wishy-washy because we don't really want to talk about that because we're liquor drinkers. That's the whole thing. Is that like we did the beer and wine and we knew that was going to be a big hit no matter what. Everybody wants to drink hard liquor. I mean, we do, I guess.
Well, we are cocktail people.
We're cocktail people, and that is kind of a separate. Like if you choose to do a package that's got liquor. Mm-hmm. We've been to weddings that have signature drinks, and those are super expensive, and those are super fun.
And they were trendy once upon a time.
Well, some people still do them.
But they were trendy once upon a time.
I see what you're saying.
I think they're overdone now.
I see what you're saying. I don't inherently disagree. They're fun to do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Also, they're expensive, which is why we are pushing beer and wine.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's just easy.
Beer and wine, we said we talk in the context of Indiana, right?
Sure.
Most of the people that you're going to invite to a wedding we operate mostly in Indianapolis, so maybe not necessarily for Indianapolis, but for the rest of the state, it's like 80% beer and wine drinkers.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that I feel like even if you're a cocktail, like us, we're cocktail people, you're drinking wine right now. Everybody's got a wine that they like, you know what I mean? Or everybody will... If you serve it, they will drink it.
Yes. Like if it's free, they're gonna drink it.
If that's all you've got, everybody's gonna drink something. Like
I drank Bud Light at a wedding.
And loved it.
I loved it because it was free, and I never drink Bud Light.
Yeah.
If I paid for a Bud Light, I don't like Bud Light, but it was free.
So that's a good thing. That's a good thing to think about. Is if you serve it, they will drink it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
I had one thing that we never finished other beer options. I just want to go.
I don't feel like we need to.
It's just real quickly.
Okay.
So having a light beer is always a good option. I recommend having some kind of import. Whether Guinness is kind of heavy, but like
Corona.
Corona's what we did.
Well, we did Mango Cart too. That was like what was that? So like maybe a craft.
That's like a sweeter beer. Yeah, like a local craft is always a good twist.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy a ton of it because not a lot of people are going to drink it. In Indianapolis, I've seen
it's a nice little treat for some people.
Three Floyds or Sun King is always going to be a hit.
Yeah.
But other imports might be like Stella Artois is a good option for an import.
Bless you.
Yeah. What's another decent import?
Some people like Dos Equis.
Dos Equis. Yeah, any of the Mexican style lagers like a Modelo would be a good option.
Modelo's a good one, yeah.
But having a variety, that's kind of the important thing with beer and wine is having a good variety of stuff. So
well, and that can alter your cost as well, because if you don't want to buy a bunch of the expensive stuff, buy some cheap shit, and people are gonna drink it. So
absolutely.
There you have it.
Absolutely. So, anyways, a lot of alcohol discussion. I mean, this is one of my passions, so we've been chatty.
Yeah. We could probably go on and on and on about this, but
absolutely.
All that to say, beer and wine is what we kind of. Is what we kind of suggest.
That's what we recommend. It's easier for your bartenders to do.
It is easier. Make sure that you get your permits in order. Like get your shit together before you serve it, because you don't want to get in trouble by anybody.
Yep.
And although we always say be a guest at your own wedding, you don't want your guests to have a crappy time, which is another piece of the alcohol puzzle. It's
expected.
It's expected. Serve what people are gonna drink. You don't want a bunch left over. Yes, you are the guests of honor, and you should be, and you should serve what you're going to drink. That was important for us, too, was serving what we wanted to drink. But the whole purpose of having a wedding is so that you bring people together. Yeah. Make sure that they're going to enjoy their time.
Sure.
I think that's super important.
And a little fun tip, I guess, from us is that because we got our permit, and because we could serve whatever we wanted, because we bought it, you and I both bought a bottle of something that we both really enjoyed. I spent way more money than you did.
I know. I bought like a $7.99 bottle from the Indiana local section.
Farm fresh blackberry.
It was delicious, and I loved it, and I would do it 1,000 more times.
And I got a bottle of Austin Hope Cab. It's a $70 bottle, but it was worth it. And that's what we had at our table. Yeah. It was just for you and I. We could do that because we did it 100%. On our own dime through our own permit at a venue that allowed it.
And that's a good way to personalize it.
Personalize it.
And I think that is a perfect place to leave it. Is that personalize your wedding, but make sure people have fun. Yep. I think that's huge.
Serve alcohol, make it free.
Be a guest at your own wedding.
Be a guest at your own wedding. Yeah.
And hire coordinators.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy your wedding. You spent a lot of work on it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Make sure other people enjoy it. That's the whole point of the alcohol.
Right. Be a guest and make sure that everyone else is
also
welcome
a guest.
And also a guest.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for listening. If this ever makes it out, and
see you soon.
See you soon. Bye. Happy wedding coordinating. Wedding planning. Happy wedding planning.